Hello, welcome to my video about Chopin's Grand Waltz Briand Opus 18 in E-flat major. The first waltz that Chopin composed and published. Why Chopin composed waltzes? Chopin, who was born in Poland, raised in Poland, who was Polish, who was composing mazurkas, polonaises, and waltzes? Well, this is a very, but really very interesting story. When Chopin was in Poland for the first 20 years, he never even thought about composing waltzes. Why? Because in Poland, waltzes at that time were considered as a kind of pop music. Popular music just for fun, for dancing, parties, balls, and so on. Chopin wanted to become a classical composer, so he didn't want to write waltzes, because then he would immediately be, considered as, oh, this is the man who writes waltzes, so okay, we don't treat him seriously, he's just another light composer of light music. When he visited Vienna, he was so surprised that Vienna was a capital of waltz. So everywhere he went, to all the aristocratic homes and palaces, parties, and everywhere he heard waltzes. And he wrote in a letter to his piano teacher, Joseph Elsner, he wrote that, can you believe that in Vienna they consider waltzes as pieces of art, as classical music? Not like in Poland. Everybody writes waltzes, they publish only waltzes, and they consider Strauss and they consider Lanner he wrote Kapellmeister, conductors, artists, great artists. So he was so surprised, and he thought himself that, okay, I can compose better waltzes than they compose. So he made a very, very smart idea to write some waltzes. But before I show you and before I explain you why this idea was so smart, I just play for you a little bit of what he could have heard when he was in Vienna that time. For example, something like this. Johann Strauss' father, one of the hundreds of waltzes that he wrote and was played probably already during Chopin's was there, but also Franz Schubert, for example. Of course, hundreds of pieces like this. And now the question is, when we have this first waltz that Chopin wrote, what differences do we hear? Well, and so on. Well, first of all, this waltz is extremely difficult to play. The other two I played for you are not. They were constructed and composed for amateur musicians, for daughters of aristocratic people who were playing piano, and after the dinner they sat on piano and they were enjoying the company by playing their music, entertaining, right? They were entertaining the evening. So, well, Chopin didn't want to write waltzes like this. He had a smart purpose in his mind, because when he left Poland, he was not so well known. He was alone, and he really had difficulties to get himself known, to get to correct people, to make connections, and to make a career. So he decided very smartly, I compose a waltz, such a waltz that everybody will just faint when I play it for them. And so he did. He composed this one. And already in Paris, and this waltz is so French, we hear aristocracy, the elegant music, very French, very light, and full of jokes, musical jokes, which that time, 200 years ago, were understood by everybody for whom Chopin played it, because people, generally speaking, they knew music, so they immediately caught these jokes. I'm going to talk about these jokes today while analyzing the piece for you, because I think it's very, very funny to listen to this waltz when we can catch these jokes. So now, just one thing before we start. What was the general recipe to compose waltzes at that time? It was very simple. The recipe was as follows. First, think of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different waltzes, melodies, and write them down and then put them next to each other, and then you will have the waltz. Sometimes at the end you can go back to the beginning, and this is everything that you have to do. They don't have to be very connected with each other, they just have to be different waltzes. Well, Chopin did the same thing, except he connected closer these waltzes to each other. But he was following the rule. He was not that innovative in this case, although in this waltz we have something extraordinary and very special at the end. But everything is normal, so we will have a few waltzes here. I always like to compare listening to the waltz to being in a very big house, aristocratic palace with many different rooms, and imagine that there is a party there and there is a lot of music, and in every room we have some different stories, some different dance, different people dancing different waltzes, sometimes slower, sometimes faster, sometimes they are not dancing but something is happening. And here in this waltz we will exactly have this kind of play, let's say. But everything starts well, it doesn't start with like a waltz. We don't know what it is. It's like a horse a little. And if the music would be we could call it a horse riding, for example. But instead of continuing this, Chopin is starting to write a waltz. The beginning brings to me a kind of image of Chopin himself in the salon. Just imagine after the dinner, everybody is sitting in the salon, drinking coffee or some cognac or some wine and talking to each other. So we have a lot of different small conversation and there's quite noisy inside. And then Chopin wants to start his waltz. So what he's doing? He sits on the piano and starts to plum. And when he hits the first note, everybody is silent immediately. What is this? Like a signal, like a trumpet. Listen to me. Now I play for you. When everybody is silent, I can start. Of course, and listen to this elegancy, this French aristocracy, fantastically written music. The first joke is like as follows. Which somebody tries to go up, then unfortunately has no power to go more up, waits a little bit upstairs and then has to go down because has no power to climb more. Listen. And then again. Definitely two different motifs are playing with each other. They are quite similar because they have the same rhythm, ta-ta-tam, 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 but one is going up, another one is going down. What is extremely elegant here is this upper note, this note where we can bow with charm. Up here, and then we go down. And again down. Okay, it is repeated. And afterwards we have the second phrase of waltz number 1. This phrase is constructed also in a very funny way, with a repeated note, repetition, which we call it. Quite a challenge for amateur pianists, well, for every pianist, but especially at that time in salon, it was practically impossible to play it by amateur pianists. So here we have this, and again we have this playing with going down and then trying to go up, and then again, and all the last 2 bars of this small phrase again bring us 2 bows full of extremely elegant. Listen. Here, this is here, and again. And we come back to the first phrase. With a little variation. To waltz number 2, and waltz number 2 is very different. It's as follows. The second phrase. And again, first phrase. So here, new jokes and different dance. We go to another room, we hear another melody, more waving melody, right? We have just this. And now here we have a few jokes. First joke is that we have here notes, one note which is a bad note, which is a false note which doesn't tune. which in our ear, for our ear, is something wrong. Without this note, the melody would be almost like in the Strauss waltz. Listen. With this note, we have now I exaggerated, especially for you to hear how funny this note is. It's like the emphasis is being put to another note, not the most important note, but to another note. Then we have another joke. We have the beginning of the waltz. This. Obsessively repeated, like somebody who tries to interrupt the main. Maybe here we have a couple here. A couple who is trying to have some romance or something, and then a little kid with the trumpet, little trumpet, is running around them, and ta-da-da is disturbing them. Listen how funny it sounds. Somebody is very boring, exactly stubborn like a kid, ta-ta-tam, and never ending. You tell them stop, but they don't stop. So what happened next? They get angry. So they are angry now. They are trying to catch the kid, but the kid is running away. Listen. And again they are angry. And again the kid is running away. And again running away. So this is the humor. Of course, it can be kid, it can be just motifs, or it can be whatever you want, but definitely we have a lot of contrast, which makes this music funny. Waltz number 3. Waltz number 3 also consists of two different phrases. The first is a very, I would say, noble. Second phrase. And again the first phrase. Okay, so the first phrase is also a mix of two different little motifs. The first motif is like somebody who is asking a lady for a dance. Let's dance with me, please. So because we have like a question here, evidently we are waiting for the answer, and then we have the answer. We have the answer. Oh yes, please, let's dance together. And again dancing. Okay, and the second phrase consists of many false notes. With small little notes all the time. They look like this in the score. They look very funny. Very small notes, which are to be played very fast, just next to the main note. And what we really hear is like a note which is dirty. So the joke is that the pianist is making mistakes because he's playing wrong notes all the time. So without these notes, we would have something like this. Okay, nice, but then we have funny thing because we are playing wrong notes. And we are again back in the phrase number 1. Next waltz is as follows. Like a dreamy, slower, somebody's in love. I personally hear here a dialogue. Person number 1 is maybe some beautiful girl, and then a man is answering. So the girl is trying to be more charming, but the man is the same. And the second time, again. Now the girl is trying to be even more charming. And everything finished, the man is the same. And then what we have next? Stop dreaming. That's the end. Now we are going back to the beginning. Again, fanfares, just in case somebody fall asleep. Wake up. We start again. So we start again. Silence and very shy. But we are lost. We don't know what to do because there's suddenly 2 big silences. Something happened. Well, happened in the waltz that we want to go to the end. So instead of continuing, Chopin is writing a coda. Coda, so the end of the piece. And coda here is extremely fascinating because it consists of motifs taken from previous waltzes. And now try to guess from which waltz Chopin is taking the motifs. Let's see. The beginning. This is the second phrase of the first waltz. So this is exactly from this. Then immediately after this we have. What is this? This is waltz number 3. phrase 2. Then we go back to this again, and we have this. Then we have phrase 1 from the first waltz. And then here. Waltz number 2. So we have waltz number 1, number 2, and number 3 all together in the coda section. And then they are mixing. It's a very fantastic way of ending the piece. And the whole piece ends very surprisingly, because we expect something very big. So what we have instead? What? Is it the ending? No, now suddenly we have, and this surprise is so fantastically written when it comes to the energy, that it always brings huge applause when the pianist plays it. And of course Chopin knew it. So this is definitely a show-off piece that is entertaining, that is to make people happy. And I always love to perform it in public. Thank you very much for watching, and I plan to do next waltzes as well, so you are invited to watch my analysis. Thank you very much, and see you again.